So we are talking about cost management. Now as a project manager, we are supposed to be also responsible for managing cost. Now out of this group, how many of you are also responsible for managing cost? In project, cost is actually related to resource. We will see why we manage costs, what is the characteristics of cost in a project, how do we plan cost management, how do we estimate cost, how do we determine budget, and how do we control cost. So what are the issues faced in projects? So cost of input and services change during the course of the project, leading to cost escalation. Now, so the first thing that we need to understand, what is the project cost? Now first of all, the project cost is all the cost of resources, whether it is man, material or labor. So in case of IT industry, we have our resources which are human beings. So each of the resource has their own CTC, has other expenses. So if it is on-site offshore, then they have their on-site components or per diem, etc. Now all those leads to cost incurred for a project. Other than that, we have also other costs, like we might need the people to travel up and down. So traveling up and down will also need the travel, airfare, visa, all those things, staying, all those which requires expenses which are cost to the project. Other than that, we might also require some materials, like IT projects might require a specific maybe software which needs to be bought, or the project might need skill in a particular area, and hence there is a specific training to be done by external or internal person, and that also has a cost. Other than that, there are also cost of management which are there from the organization point of view. Now all these together will be taken up in the cost. So when we are looking at cost, we will look at some of these financial related concepts we need to know and we need to understand for our exams. So cost estimation is difficult since there are many factors that influence the cost of a project, and not all of them are under the project's direct control. So delays in project execution increases the chance of cost escalation. Say for example, if you are creating a bridge. Now when you are creating a bridge, there is a lot of requirement from the customer side to do certain things in particular manner. And there we will find that there will be change requests. Now those change requests also will add to the cost, but only after it gets approved. In terms of escalation, suppose we are building a bridge. Now when we are building a bridge, there is various raw materials. Now one raw material may be steel, another may be cement. Now steel and cement, we all know that the price increases every year. Now if a bridge is to be built, and if you are living in a place like Calcutta where it took 20 years to build one bridge over the river Ganges, so you can understand the amount of cost escalation which has happened to the cost just for the sake of, because of the cost of the steel that is required to build the bridge. So here also the first process that we do is planning cost management. So the process that establishes the policy, procedure and documentation for planning, managing, spending and controlling project cost is cost management plan. So project management plan, charter, EF and OPS are your inputs. Expert judgment, analytical technique and meetings are your tools and techniques, and cost management plan are your outputs. Now here you need to understand, or the project manager needs to know the overall financial procedures and policies also related to what affects him. Say for example, if he has to do an estimation, he needs to know the financial policies in terms of travel, in terms of per diem, etc. He needs to know HR policies in terms of finding out that how much, what is the band of the people that he is taking. For that band, how much is the CTC for the company. All those informations he will need to be able to derive the cost. And also for in case of overheads which gets distributed across multiple projects, it is finance who will direct as to how the overheads will be distributed among the projects based on whether the project value, whether any other parameter. It has to be followed as per the policy and procedure defined in the financial procedure. So finance, HR, all these procedures are required to be consulted to come with a project cost. So cost management plan describes how the project cost will be planned, structured and controlled. The cost management process and the associated tools and techniques along with the following components are documented. Like what is the unit of measure? Now whether it is a dollar, whether it's INR, whether it is any other value that has to be given. Then the level of precision. So the degree to which activity cost estimates will be rounded up or down. So are you going into a only dollar value, or you are going to a decimal place of that also? The level of accuracy. So what is the acceptable range of accuracy that is acceptable? Like plus 5%, minus 5%, or plus 10%, minus 5%, all those kind of which needs to be defined. Now again, these are values which is guided by the finance procedure. And amount for contingency. How much of money should be kept for contingency? We will discuss about contingency a little bit later. So once the schedule is done, the next activity based on the plan is to estimate the cost. So our starting point for cost estimate is the schedule with the proper resources allocated. So the process of developing an approximation of the monetary resources needed to complete the project activities. We need to also understand that it is not only the total project cost. We also need to understand when how much of money is required. Now when a project starts, if the project costs say 5 crores or 5,000 crores, it is not that at the beginning of the project itself the whole set of money is given to the project manager. He keeps it in his safe and keeps giving it out. The money also has to come from the corporate, from the organization, and it is not possible for organization to fund outflow if it is not planned properly. So hence the finance department needs to know when how much of money is required for expense, as well as when how much of money is expected to be received from the client based on the deliverables. So we need to help in creating the fund flow statement for the project. Now cost management plan, human resource management plan, scope baseline, project baseline, risk register, EF and OPAs are the inputs. Expert judgment, analogous estimation, parametric estimation, bottom-up estimation, 3-point estimate, reserve analysis, cost of quality, project management software, vendor bid analysis, group decision making techniques. All these are tools and techniques. And output is activity cost estimate and basis of estimate and project document updates. So we need not only to give the estimate, we also need to document that what was the basis for this estimation, so that later on if anybody is looking back, will be able to understand for what reason and how you have arrived at that figure. So in OPS, the following internal policy and processes are used, like cost estimation policy, internal guideline on how to estimate cost. Like somebody might say that we will use analogous, we will use parametric, we will use bottom up, all these are mentioned in the documents. Cost estimating templates, there may be cost estimation templates. Most probably many of you use that. So when you are bidding for a project, you fill up this cost estimation template after you create a schedule, and once you do that, you send it to your finance and your manager to get the approval, and then only you will be able to give that quote to the client. Do you do that? Any of you help in pre-sales activities? Okay. Now historical information and project files of similar projects are your OPS. Project scope baseline. The project scope statement along with WBS and WBS enables the eliminator to come up with the cost estimate. Human resource plan is one of the key resource. So key resources are always on demand and have to be allocated and deallocated. Risk register. See, risk has a strong influence on the cost, because if the risk is high, you define what is the impact of the risk, and you also define what is your risk response plan. For the response also there is some kind of a cost involved. So all those are all added as contingencies, which is called contingency reserve, which is for known unknown. That means where you have already identified that there is some risk. Say for example, there is a risk while building the bridge that we will have a monsoon in between, so there will be a delay of 3 months. So that is a risk. Now that risk may have some effect on the project itself in terms of cost due to the delay, and it can also have effect in terms of what we are planning to do to mitigate that risk. So that also is defined and adds to the cost. So these type of costs for known unknowns are stored in something called a contingency reserve. Remember the terminology, it is called contingency reserve. There are market conditions like sole source. Okay, now when we are giving work to some vendor, to a subcontractor, say for example you are bringing in some consultants to do the work. Now if you are bringing these consultants to do the work, you have to pay them. Now that is based on market conditions. So market conditions can be, we talk about 3 types: sole source, single source and oligopoly. We know what is a sole source. Anyone knows what is a sole source? Sole source means there is only a single vendor. That is, there is only one person or one organization who can deliver that service or product. There is nobody else in the market to deliver that. Now in such situations what happens is they will charge you higher. fees or higher rate. So your cost increases for that. Now you go for sole source when you are looking at some very customized, sophisticated, niche kind of a product. Single source is where there are multiple vendors, but your organization has empaneled only one vendor. So you are supposed to take it only from the vendor who is being empaneled. So that is a single source. So here the control of negotiating the price or the fees is a bit more than the sole source. Here also you will go for more critical items. And finally you have oligopoly, where you have many vendors providing the same product or service. Now here you can go to anyone. Here your control over the price is higher. So things which are more generic in nature, you will go for these oligopoly kind of vendors. There is also published commercial information. On all of these different sources of service, rates, etc., which can be also used to refer. Now we have to understand certain financial concepts like type of project expenses. So there are direct cost, indirect cost, there are variable cost and fixed cost. So what is direct cost and what is indirect cost? Can anyone say what is direct cost and what is indirect cost? Direct cost is directly related to the project, that's right. Travel, stay of resources, indirect cost. Any service we outsource is indirect cost. No. Whenever you are doing anything, resource billing, yes, resource billing is direct cost. See, resource billing is a direct cost. Any travel which is done specifically for the project is a direct cost, because that particular cost is not used for any other purpose, but it is only specific to the project. People, you are paying per diem, you are paying their stay, their hotel, whatever, is only for this project. In that case, it is a direct cost. Indirect cost is something else. Indirect cost is which cannot be identified in the project itself. So for example, is creating a table. Now the wood, the nails, all those are direct cost. But the fees for the carpenter is an indirect cost, because you cannot identify the fees of the carpenter in the product that is being created. Now here it is a bit dicey or difficult to understand in an IT project, because for IT project the resource cost itself is a direct cost, but indirect costs are costs like overheads. Like the company has an overhead, like say for example, people are working in the organization. There is a place where these people are sitting There is electricity cost, there is cost of the machines that are there, there is cost of the air conditioning, there is cost of the security who is there. So all those costs that are there are different managers who are there like HR, finance, etc., and senior managers who are also supporting the overall execution of the projects across the organization. Now those are also costs which needs to be apportioned against all the projects that are running. Those are indirect costs in case of an IT project. Infrastructure is an indirect cost if it is shared. If there is a specific infrastructure for the project, then it is a direct cost. So is direct and indirect cost clear now? Any question on this? Okay, the next thing that we need to understand is the variable cost. Okay, there is a question. Road to a project site is a direct cost. Road to head office is an indirect cost. What do you mean by road? You are saying that the cost of travel, construction, okay, constructing a road to the project site and constructing the road to the head office. Okay, in your example, I can say it is right because the project site has nothing to do with the head office. Now, head office is going to be used for all projects, for controlling or managing all projects. So, if you have to create a road or construct a road to that office, yes, obviously that is not a direct cost. That is one overhead which can be shared by multiple projects, which will be a overhead indirect cost. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. So now let us look at variable and fixed cost. Any idea on variable and fixed cost? Variable means the cost which varies as per the project requirement, changes with the amount. Of variable is equal to keeps changing. Okay. Fixed and variable cost. Okay. Travel costs are variable, although there might be a cap. Travel, that's right. So any cost which does not change with the increase in the number of units produced is a fixed cost. So whether you produce anything or not, certain expense which is already spent will be spent. So for example, if you have created a project site and you have put electricity, if you have put a security guard there, now the cost of the project site and the security guard that you are paying, whether any amount of work is being done in the project or not, that cost will be occurred every month. That is a fixed cost. Whereas when the project work starts, like your resource, man, material and labor, as you do execution, you use more and more resources and you complete more and more work, then that is a variable cost. So if you think from the production point of view, if in a manufacturing plant, when you set up the manufacturing plant, the cost of the manufacturing plant, the security, the electricity, the overall management of that, all those are spent on a regular basis whether any production is produced or not. But when you are producing some material and the raw materials like say steel or plastic or whatever is used, say you are making toy, so the plastic, rubber, whatever is used. Now as if you create one toy, there is some amount of cost. When you are producing 100 toys, then you are having 100 times that one cost of one doll or one toy. So that is your variable cost. So variable cost is the cost which increases with the amount of production. Whereas fixed cost is whether you produce or not, it has to be produced. It has to be incurred. Okay, one more point that you need to understand is something called sunk cost. S-U-N-K, sunk cost. Okay, there is a question. The cost of a machine that makes toys is fixed cost, but the cost of raw material, labor in producing toys is a variable cost. That's right, Syed. That's absolutely right. So now there is another concept called sunk cost. S-U-N-K. Anybody has any idea on what is sunk cost? Lost amount? Yes, it's right to some extent. So sunk cost means sometimes you will hear that your managers are saying that we have spent so much of money, so much of effort on this particular project, and we will definitely have a success. Let us put that additional effort and bring it to a closure. But sometimes you will find that misunderstanding between client and your organization, and there is no way whatever amount of further effort that you put that you will be able to close the project. So it makes sense for the organization to pull out of the project. There is a saying called don't cry over spilt milk. It is like that. So you should not cry over spilt milk and put in more effort and more cost on a project which will not give you the return. So if your amount of effort which is required further to be able to complete the project is much more than what you will get out of the project, it is better to close the project. Now that's a decision which project manager himself cannot take. But project manager has to give the required inputs to in terms of cost to the senior management for them to be able to take the decision of pulling out of the project. Sometimes it is not only the cost, there are some other parameters like credibility, and maybe you are doing something for the first time, and if you can complete this successfully, you will get a lot more business, etc., from other companies and all as a reference to this. Then you specifically decide, your organization specifically decides to go ahead with it, which is properly documented. Now that is sunk cost. Now coming to these three estimates, levels of accuracy. Remember this because there is direct question or there might be calculations based on these 3 points. So if anybody says that you calculate based on the rough order of magnitude, that means there is a tolerance limit of minus 25% to plus 75%. There is a budget estimate. This is that early stage planning where you have minus 10% to 25% variance. And definitive estimate, it is the most accurate. WBS is required to create this minus 5% to 10%. So once your WBS is created and approved, then your estimation from that point of time should not be more than 10% higher or minus 5% lower than what you have estimated. So these are the acceptable levels of estimation accuracy at different points of time. So in a question in PMP, they might ask you to calculate something where they say that you calculate based on the budget estimate, or they calculate on the basis of definitive estimate, or calculate on the basis of rough order of magnitude estimate. So you have to take this into consideration to calculate the right value. Sometimes there are direct questions also that what is the rough order of magnitude? It is minus 25 to plus 75, or they will give you plus minus 75 to plus 25. So they will give 3-4 different options which are similar looking, but you have to be very careful that rough order of magnitude is minus 25 to plus 75. Budget estimate is minus 10% to plus 25%, and definitive estimate is minus 5 to plus 10. Analogous estimation. Now this is a technique that is used to which uses analogy to arrive at an estimate, which we have already seen here. For like we have seen estimation of time, estimation of cost can also be done based on the previous information that we did a similar project or we wrote a similar program, so that costed us this much, or we got this kind of a resource and that resource costed this much, so this resource will also cost this much. Parametric estimation again is analogous plus some formula. So we can say that in our previous project we have spent 1000 rupees for every cubic meter of excavation. So now here also we will do the same kind of excavation, so we can safely say that we will use 1000 rupees per cubic meter to be our excavation rate, or we spent 2 rupees 50 paisa for painting per square feet of wall. Now we will use the same 250 for painting per square feet of wall, or maybe we will add that, okay, that was 1 year back, so there is an inflation, so we will add 10% more. That is your parametric estimation. Bottom up estimation, again as it says, that you will go to the lowest level of activity. For each activity, for each resource, you will calculate the cost based on the resource rate. You can use a project management software, or if you are outsourcing that work to some other vendor, then you will do a vendor bid analysis, which means that you will do some kind of a procurement activity where the vendors, multiple vendors will submit their bids and you will choose a particular bid. We will look at the details of this process in the procurement knowledge area. At this point we are just saying that whatever the vendors have bidded and the vendor who has been chosen, his bid is the cost for your project. Then you have reserve analysis to provide for contingencies where risk is involved. And as I said, that contingency reserve is for known unknowns. And then there is something called cost of quality. Now cost of quality is incurred to prevent defects. What are the costs which is required to be incurred to prevent defects? We will see this when we are talking about the quality knowledge area. So any questions so far? Said says lost almost. Okay, Said, which part? Where did you lose? Yes, any questions? Which part you want me to repeat? No questions? Said? And what are the outputs? Activity cost estimate, that is the quantitative assessment of likely cost of resource that are needed to complete the assigned task. The basis of estimate, we have to keep the justifications, and the project document update in terms of if the estimation activity resulted in any approved change request to the cost management plan. The next step, once you have found the cost, then we have to determine the budget. So now, till now what we have done is, we have calculated what is the expected cost for executing that project. Does activity cost estimate include estimates per activity as well? See, if you are doing a bottom-up approach, in that case, yes, because you will be starting off at the lowest level of activity. And then you will keep building up. Now that is the best way of doing it, because for each activity you know how much of what kind of resources required, man, material or labor. And for each of the man, material or labor, you have the amount of utilization of them as well as what is the rate for utilization. And based on that you can calculate the overall activity cost. If there is any overheads to be added, that can also be added to the activity level, or it can be added at a higher level. So the activity cost gets rolled up into higher levels of phases or stages or deliverables, and accordingly those can be rolled up to the project level. So it's better to go for the activity level if you have that much of information. In certain projects, you don't have that much of information at the activity level. Say, for example, let's say you are doing construction. Now, when you are buying cement, you don't buy cement in terms of each activity. You will buy cement for the whole project as a whole, because that will give you the benefit of the volume. Now, once you get the total amount of cement that needs to be bought, you negotiate with the vendor and you get a good price for the cement, and you ask them to deliver also in certain bulks. The cement comes to the store, and then the cement is allocated to the different project activities. So in those cases, what happens is you might calculate the total cement requirement and find a cost to it instead of an activity level. So the process of aggregating the estimated cost of individual activities or work packages to establish an authorized cost baseline is determining budget, and finance has to approve that budget. So cost management plan, scope baseline, activity cost estimate, basis of estimate, schedules, resource calendar, risk register, agreements, and organization process assets are your inputs. Cost aggregation, reserve analysis, expert judgment, historical relationship, and funding limit reconciliation are the tools and techniques. Another question, one more query: in future value of material may change. How are that determined at present? What do you mean by value of material may change in future? Value of what? You are saying that the price of the material may increase? Okay. So see, when you are estimating, you will estimate at an expected price. So for example, if you say that this building will cost you around, will take around 1 year to build, you know that this is the kind of rate that is currently going in the market, and you also know from these shops and all that what is the possibility of price hikes, or maybe from historical data you know that how much of hikes happens. So what you do is you also put a when you are planning, you plan in such a way that you take the price little bit higher than what is already there in the market as of today. So that becomes your budget, your cost estimate. It is not necessary that only what is available today in the market is what you should put in the cost. Here you are estimating. So if you are expecting that it will be increasing, so you put that increase. But the other thing that is there is sometimes there is higher hikes. So what you do is in a project contract, you also put up contingency of escalation of prices. So that becomes your contingency. It's a risk that there might be a very high or steep rise in price of steel or certain components. In that particular case, you will put that as a contingency reserve. Okay. So the outputs of determined budget is cost performance baseline, project funding requirement, and project document update. Now what is funding limit reconciliation? What is funding limit reconciliation? Somebody says that the limit imposed by customer. No, reconciling variance in budget with baseline. See, when you are talking about cost, there is no involvement of your customer. You are doing the work. Who is going to pay for the cost? Who is going to pay for the expense? Customer? No. Customer will pay for your service or product, not for your expense. It is your organization, the performing organization. So if you are developing a software, who is paying for the resource? Who is paying for the travel? Who is paying for the visa? Who is paying for the per diem? Who is paying for the training? Who is paying for the software that needs to be bought specifically for that project? All those are done by the performing organization itself. So the budget has to be approved by the performing organization, that is your sponsor and your finance department. That is your budget. What customer gives is a different thing. That is a commercial discussion which has nothing to do with project management. Customer will pay some remuneration which is based on what has been contracted with your organization. Your project cost might be 100, but your customer is paying 50, which your organization has accepted, because if you get this customer satisfied and if you can put that customer's name, say for example in case of India, suppose you do a work for Reliance. Reliance will pay always less. Now if Reliance is paying less, that does not mean that your project cost decreases. Your project cost still remains 100. Your Reliance has decided to pay 80. Your organization has accepted 80. Now that 80 does not change your project cost or budget to 80. Your project cost or budget is still 100. We mix up things in terms of the contractual value and the project cost. These two are two different things, and that's one of the reasons why you will see that we say that we should celebrate the project success once the project is completed and accepted, whether it is within the amount, whether it is profitable for the organization or not, because profitability has nothing to do with the project team. That is a different management consideration which is not considered as part of the project management process. Unfortunate part is project managers here in IT industry, they will put down that whatever they are committing to the customer and whatever the customer is agreeing to becomes your project cost. You think that is the project cost. No, it is not that. Suppose you have planned for 10 travels, but you need to travel for 12 times. There is a overall cost increase. Now that is your organization who is going to handle it. Now customer doesn't bother about whether you will go for 10 times or 12 times. As far as he is concerned, he should get his project completed in the way that he is expecting it to be. So cost is related to your internal to your organization. Your sponsor and finance is going to approve that, and that is your budget for the project. Now funding limit reconciliation is also related to your finance. as I had mentioned in the previous slide itself, that when you are creating a project deliverables, you are creating a fund inflow of fund statement. That means when should your organization expect money coming to the organization from your project. So after your deliverables, which is a contractual deliverable, you can raise an invoice, and with that invoice you will get the money. So you know that when the project manager knows that when the respective deliverables will be ready and delivered. So accordingly, you know that if it takes 1 month from that time for the invoice to be raised and the money to be received from the client, so finance knows that in another 1 month from those delivery dates is when he will get the money coming. So that is your fund inflow. So that is one. But the other part is, you also as a project manager know that what resource is required when. So when you say that I need 2 resources for the first 2 months, I need 5 resources for the next 5 months, I need 1 month where I need around 10 resources, then gradually the resource is coming down. So your resource availability chart or the resource requirement chart that you create will give you the idea of when, how much of expenses to be done on behalf of the resource. Now you can do that for man, material and machine. So based on that, what you do is you create a fund outflow chart. That is how much of money that will go out of the company at that point of time. So if you have planned for travel, 10 travels, over where there is 1 travel in the first month, there is 1 more travel in the second month, then there is 5 travels in the third month, third month, and then there is another 2 travels in the 7th and 8th month. So then you know when money is required to buy those tickets, visas, etc., and stay per diem and all. So accordingly, finance will plan their fund statement, fund flow statement, and they may have certain limitations as to what is the maximum amount of money that can be funded or that can be paid in a particular month. Now in bigger projects like let's say for example, your organization, let's say April is the month when the appraisals are done, and let's say by July is when your appraisal gets completed and you get your new salary based on the appraisal, which also gives you the arrears from April till June. Now that is a month where the company has a very high outflow of money, because there is a huge amount of arrear money which needs to be paid in the month of June. Now generally the organization will like to keep project related expenses to the minimum during those months, because they don't want to go out of their current cash reserve, and I mean the current cash which is there, working capital, they don't want to finish that off and go into the reserve to take out money. So they will set up certain limitations saying that in this month you can ask for this much of expenses, this month you can have this much more of expenses. So they will put some funding limits of how much of fund can be released, and accordingly you have to see that how you plan your expenses in terms of travel, in terms of vendor payment. So vendors, if you are using a vendor, a consultant, a team of consultants from outside, if you are using those kind of people, you will need to see that when their deliverables are due, so that it does not create a problem for the funding limitation that has been set by your finance department. So you need to reconcile those two and make sure that you are getting the resource, the materials, man, material, machine in the right time, in the right amount, without affecting the project for the delays, and also manages the fund flow as per the requirement of your finance team. That's why funding limit reconciliation. Is that clear? Any question on this? No questions? Completely confused? Okay, good. So these we have talked about. Activity cost estimate, activities within each work package is aggregated to arrive at the estimate. Basis of estimate, that is developed during the cost estimating phase, that how you have arrived at the project scope baseline, review and incorporate funding constraints available in the charter and which gets documented in the project scope statement into the cost budget. Use project schedule used to aggregate costs for the period when the specified activity would be performed. Resource calendar shows details of when the particular resource can be active and when it would be inactive. Information related to what products are or services need to be produced or obtained. Reserve analysis used for, I think there is a mistake, it should be used for known unknowns, and it is called contingency reserve. There is something else called management reserve, which is a different one. I will talk about it. So reserve analysis about known unknowns, and the money is reserved. Cost aggregation, cost estimate of activities are aggregated to work package level and then up to the project. And funding limit reconciliation, expenditure towards the project are reviewed against limits set by the, not the customer, as I said, it is about the internal organization. Not able to differentiate cost versus budget, Sachi. Okay, so cost is your expectation of how much is going to be spent on each of those activities, resources, materials, etc., which totally is accumulated and rolled up to the total expected cost of the project. Now to that you add something called the reserve, contingency reserve, which is your money that you expect may be spent if there are certain risks which you have already identified. So these are for known unknowns. Together this amount is your, when it gets approved, becomes your budget. That is the amount of money which has been approved by your organization to be spent to execute the project. So as a project manager, now you have that much of money to be spent over that period of time to deliver your product or service. Does that answer your question? Clarify your doubt? Sachi? Okay. Cost baseline. A time-phased budget used for monitoring and controlling projects. So whatever this budget that you get, you baseline that budget and that becomes your cost baseline. Project funding requirements, I have already explained. and project document updates. Now see this diagram, it will help you to understand the concept better. So you have the activity level cost, and you can have a activity contingency reserve. The summation of all the activities will come to work package cost and the work package contingency reserve. When I say contingency reserve, I have always said that these are for the known unknowns. That is for the risks which you have already found out, risks which you have already identified. So that is contingency reserve. So project manager knows about the risk, project manager knows about the overall activity, and project manager knows what is the expense for all of this. Now this whole thing becomes your contingency reserve and the work package cost. Now sometimes project managers create something called control accounts. So they will create control accounts, which is basically the summation of these two values, contingency reserve plus work package. Now that becomes your cost baseline. That is the value against which you will be monitoring your project for your cost performance. So you had your schedule performance monitoring based on the schedule variance, which schedule baseline, which was created earlier. Now you have created your cost baseline, which consists of two items, which is your work package cost, that is the actual expenses that needs to be made, and the contingency reserve. Now over and above that, there is something called management reserve. Now management reserve is an amount which your senior managers will be having, and that amount, how much of that amount is there, is not known to the project manager. Hence project's performance is never monitored on the management reserve. All the project's cost will be managed based on the cost baseline that we see. So management reserve is another amount of money which is still stored separately by the management, and these are for unknown unknowns. That means you never expected such risks to happen. You never expected that there will be a big storm and the bridge fell down. Part of the bridge fell down. So it has to be reworked. So that rework cost gets added. Now where will you get that additional amount of money from? So that you get from a management reserve. So project manager has to specifically ask for this money, and then they will get it. So remember this concept, because there is question on understanding of contingency reserve and management reserve. So contingency reserve is part of the cost baseline. It is for known unknowns, that is for identified risks. Management reserve is not known to the project manager, and hence project manager does not use that much of that amount in his variance calculation. He uses only up to the cost baseline. Now cost baseline plus management reserve together is known as project budget, which is known by the senior manager and by your finance. If we don't know about unknown unknowns, how are we going to cost? Is it in the form of some percentage? Yes. As I said, Syed, management reserve is not a responsibility of project manager. Management reserve is not something which project manager knows. Project manager does not even calculate that management reserve. Project manager calculates up to this cost baseline. Based up on top of that, depending on the project and experience, senior managers will put another percentage of value to that, say let's say 25%, and will put that as the project budget. But project manager doesn't know. Project manager only comes to the senior management when he knows that it is not something which is a budget, which is a baseline amount. It's not an approved budget for him. In that particular case, he will go for that additional expense to the project manager. Suppose there is a risk that your most critical resource will leave. If your most critical resource will leave, you don't know about it. So that is not a known unknown. But suddenly he decides and he quits. Now you need to get another resource that will have its own time and cost to bring, and that cost might be higher. So it might have more cost impact on the project. That is something which you will get from the management reserve. Is this diagram clear? Because this is important. There's questions on management reserve and contingency reserve. So project manager knows only about contingency reserve for known unknowns. Management reserve is not known to the project manager. It is for unknown unknowns. So now if you see, you have the budget at completion, which is your cost baseline. Then you have the project budget, this dotted line, which is basically your budget at completion plus management reserve. And then here it shows the funding requirements, which is like a step, because it is not given in one shot. It is given in different stages. So you have expenditures, you have the cost baseline, you have the budget at completion, you have the project budget, you have the management reserve. So how do you control cost? Comparing actual cost with cost baseline, influencing factors that impact cost baseline, and managing changes efficiently, thereby controlling cost. So control, for any control, we have always seen that control cost is always with respect to a baseline and the variance of the baseline with the actuals. So it is the process of monitoring the status of the project to update the project cost and managing changes to the cost baseline. So your project management plan, funding requirements, work performance data, and OPS. Tools and techniques that you use here is earned value management, forecasting, 2 complete performance index, performance reviews, project management software, and reserve analysis. Reserve analysis is basically to see how much of the contingency reserve has been eaten up and how much of progress has happened. Compare that and see how you are faring. Same thing happens with if there is any management reserve, how much has been taken up and how much of project work has been complete. So you do the analysis and see that whether it is possible. So output is work performance information, cost forecast, change request, project management plan update, document updates, and OPA updates.